It is wildcard time. I've decided to make enough transfers to force me into playing a wildcard in game week 6. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you about why I did it, what has changed since Sunday's video where I didn't think it was going to be that likely. I basically just decided that enough was enough. We're going to take you through two different drafts, one that includes both Erling Haaland, one that includes Haaland and Salah in, and we're going to talk about the pros of one, the pros of the other, what I'm most likely to do, and why I think it's better for me to go now versus in a couple of weeks in game week 8. What is up, everyone? FPL Harry here. Before we dive in, 2,000 likes is the aim, and subscribe if you are new to the channel. Now, just before we start, as a bit of a disclaimer, sometimes when I record early on in the mornings, people leave comments that I look really tired and that I sound ill, and it happens every time I record early in the morning. So this time, I'm just going to offer a disclaimer. I know people have much more early mornings than I do, but it is currently 7 a.m. and to be recording a video having not been up for that long, it's often why I sound or I might look a little bit tired. I am absolutely fine, but that is why I was up late last night. I honestly didn't confirm that I was going to play the wildcard until about 1 a.m. when I was looking at some potential price changes. And we'll talk about that being a big factor that forced me into doing it in just a moment. But a couple of things, first of all. So this is how my team lined up going into game week 6 after I confirmed the two transfers that I said I would on Sunday evening. I sold Chris Wood and I sold Mo Salah in favour of Semenyo and in favour of Haaland. My team on paper did look really nice and it didn't need a wild card. And I still stand by the fact that I know Watkins and Rodgers had been disappointing and there were things turning for my team. But I didn't think my team really needed a wild card. And if it wasn't for a couple of factors, I don't think I was going to play it this week. But what changed? What forced me to play, or what made me decide to play the wildcard in game week 6? So the first one and the big one was the fact that I'd already used two transfers and wildcarding would give me those two transfers back. So going into game week 7, I'd have two moves after the wildcard, and going into game week 8, I would then have 3 free transfers, which it puts me in a nice position going forward. The other major one was the amount of team value that I had to lose over the next week, but also going into game week 7, where I wouldn't really have the ability to buy any Arsenal players who I have been very impressed with. And I do have triple Arsenal on my wildcard at the moment going into game week 6. If you include Semenyo and Haaland, I expect to lose about $1 million in value this week alone. Now, if you take out Semenyo and Haaland, it's closer to 0.6 million because we are probably going to get a double rise from both of those this week. But Morgan Rodgers was predicted to drop in price last night, which he did. We also had a predicted drop for Williams, which hasn't come yet, but is going to come before game week 8 regardless. And I'm not going to be able to sell him until I get to my wild card. So he's probably going to drop. So that's 0.2. Watkins and Rodgers also both likely to drop, which moves it to 0.4. Then we're also expecting rises from Gabriel and David Raya this week, again, with their nice upcoming fixtures. Let alone any of those players dropping twice, let alone any potential of those rising twice. You know, Agbadu, we might see him drop in price because he's been disappointing. Sanchez of Chelsea, he goes up against Brighton and Liverpool in the next two games, and I think David Raya is definitely better. He also just got sent off, and you never know if he's definitely going to start, which did play a little bit of a factor in deciding that there's a chance I get to game week 6 and Sanchez doesn't start at home to Brighton, and then he's got Liverpool, which would be an absolute nightmare. So that's 0.6 million in value this week if you exclude Haaland and Semenyo, but they are part of the wildcard now. So it's already up at 0.8 this week. Plus you look at the fact that Arsenal then walk into West Ham at home, and I wouldn't be able to buy any of them into my team because Watkins is Burnley at home, which was good, and I wasn't going to sell him for Gyökeres, and I could make a transfer defensively to buy Gabriel, and I didn't really feel worth it for 1 week before a potential wildcard to use another transfer. It just felt like too many transfers used in too short a period of time. And the other one I've got like Lucas Paqueta in there that I also don't like. So I have made lots of transfers, so I haven't actually clicked the wildcard button. And just to answer a couple of questions with the wildcard being played this week, the first one is you can make lots of transfers, take lots of hits. And if you're in that situation, if you've done it on purpose or you've done it by accident, as long as you activate the wildcard before the deadline, you will get your transfers back that you made. So I will get my 2 free transfers back. And I will also not take the minus I think the minus 28 that I'm currently on with the amount of transfers that I've already made on Monday evening. So that's just a couple of things. That's enough talk. That was my team before it, and I've made the transfers. So let's look at the wildcard draft. So we're actually very quickly going to start with the Haaland Salah draft. And one of the big benefits to wildcarding in game week 8 was if you wanted to go with Haaland Salah or you wanted to go for Palmer. But I just can't see a world in where we think going with Palmer at the moment is a very good idea. Bukayo Saka looks like he's back, so we could have bought ourselves an extra bit of time. But with Gyökeres likely being on penalties now, the Madueke injury could have an impact on whether Saka is a good pick or a great pick because of potential slightly reduced minutes if Madueke is available, but it sounds like he might have a little bit, well, actually quite a bad injury. We're waiting for an update on that. But generally, the difference between the Game Week 6 and the Game Week 8 wildcard is if you wanted to go with Haaland and Mo Salah. And the more and more I looked at it, the more I thought, A, I can get from my wildcard draft to a Haaland Salah draft pretty easily with a couple of transfers if I wanted to. But I also felt that it wasn't that likely to happen because Salah's data has just not been good enough for me to really want to do it in the near future. Now, in game week 12-13, when their fixtures turn really nice for a period before the African Cup of Nations, I might well go to a period where I go with a Haaland and Salah draft. But in the short term, I didn't see the sacrifice that this team makes to go for it worthwhile. So I don't think that much is likely to change on a game week 8 wildcard versus a game week 6 one. The basic difference is it's Salah and in this we've got Strand Larsen and Dewsbury Hall, but it's Salah and like a Dewsbury Hall versus a Gyökeres and a Bruno Fernandes. And although Salah has been great, he actually has worse data than both Bruno Fernandes and Gyökeres, which made it very difficult for me to, worthwhile going with the Salah Haaland draft, especially when Salah doesn't get the Campty armband for me for quite a number of weeks. The only other benefit, just to mention earlier, if I hadn't have wildcard, I probably would have triple captained Haaland. So if he'd have done really well against Burnley, which he might do, might not look quite as good. But there are still other good triple captaincy options. I'm looking at Haaland at home to Leeds in game week 13. So in terms of the wildcard draft, we've got double Arsenal going up against a Newcastle side. It's not the best fixture to open with them, but Arsenal have been great, particularly defensively, and Newcastle haven't scored that many goals. I've gone with Goodmanson with Senesi because we have gone with Richards and Anderson on the bench to sort of rotate in alongside Senesi, alongside Gabriel. Into midfield, Stack is an interesting one, and he is the 5 million option sort of flavour of the month. Leeds' upcoming fixtures are good. He's not bad for DEFCON. He's on set pieces. He's 5 million as well. He's one that if in a couple of weeks, if I wildcarded, it might be a different 5 million option. I might decide to go to Caicedo. It might be Elliot Anderson again. There might be someone else in at that price. But he looks pretty reliable. He's playing 90 minutes. And yeah, a lot of going for him at the moment. Salah would be in, of course, Semenyo, Reinders, and Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall is on 4 yellow cards as a note. So just 1 yellow card away from a potential suspension. João Pedro, Haaland, and then Strand Larsen up front. You could downgrade Strand Larsen if you wanted to upgrade Dewsbury Hall. So because I don't have my bench boost anymore, I could do Strand Larsen to a 4.5 million forward and do Dewsbury Hall up to someone like a Iliman Ndiaye, to Mohamed Kudus, to a Xavi Simons, or someone else in a Jack Grealish if you want another midfielder in at that price. And because I don't have the bench boost, that is an option for me. But I don't think I'm going to go with a Haaland Salah draft. But if you wanted one, this is probably what I would do. And then we're 9 minutes into the video, and let's actually have a look at how my wildcard is lining up. And there's not that much difference to how my team is looking at the moment before I activated it. But I think there was enough difference, particularly in game week 7. I'm not sure my wildcard team looks that much better, if better at all, in game week 6 alone. But I definitely think it looks better in game week 7. And I'm backing players that I actually want to back. Like, I tweeted this last night when I was deliberating doing the wildcard or not. I'm losing 1 million. I was going to lose 1 million in value. And I've got this term in my head that I was going to lose 1 million in value. I was going to lose 1 million in value. But I was going to lose 1 million in value to hope that Aston Villa turn it around. And that's basically was like, Harry, what are you doing? You're losing value, hoping that a team that scored 1 goal in the opening 5 weeks suddenly turn it around against a Fulham side. And Aston Villa now play Thursday, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday. They are back in Europe, and we saw them in Europe at the end of last season, and we saw them struggle with the Premier League games and the fast turnaround, and they have that again. And it was just a combination of factors of suddenly trying to back Villa further and further, everyone in my team dropping in price, players that I wanted rising in price, and I knew that if I wildcarded in game week 8, I would not be able to afford this team, the team that I wanted to build in game week 8, if I'd have waited for it. So let's look at the draft. I've actually got 0.6 million in the bank, and there is one place I am considering investing that money. David Raya is in goal with Gabriel for the double up. And then, unfortunately, I know some of you don't like it. This wildcard probably looks quite similar to what you're seeing a lot of other people pick, but particularly defensively and actually going forward, with the injury to someone like Cole Palmer, with Salah being a little bit disappointing and Saka being injured, there are a lot of picks which do kind of pick themselves. And that happens defensively with the introduction of DEFCON. The attacking fullbacks haven't performed so far. We don't really have many good fullbacks going forward. So the DEFCON defenders are just looking fantastic. I've gone with Gabriel, Tarkowski and Senesi, and I've gone with Anderson and Chris Richards on the bench. Chris Richards was the defender I wanted in game week 1 that I didn't go with. I did have drafts with Iliman and Dyer. I did have drafts with Tarkowski in game week 1. So we were so close to greatness at the beginning of the season, but I just went with the wrong draft at the end of the day. Tarkowski is the one that I'm not certain of. I have 0.6 million in the bank. For anyone who knows the prices well enough, will know that that is the exact money to do Tarkowski to Virgil van Dijk. But if I go Gabriel, Van Dijk, Senesi, Anderson, Richards, I'm going to bench points all the time. And Tarkowski is so good for defensive contributions that I'm not sure right now it's worth spending the extra money on it. Plus, West Ham are awful at defending set pieces at the moment. So having Tarkowski for that fixture on the Monday night does feel quite nice. Into midfield, as I said, I do like Antoine Stack, but he is going to be benched for me this week. There is actually a very, very small part of my mind that wants to bench Gyökeres for Antoine Stack. I've not been that impressed by Gyökeres in some of the bigger games against defenders who are maybe slightly better. But the Arsenal fixtures from game week 7 onwards make me very inclined to go with him, especially, as I said, with the injury to Cole Palmer, with me not being sure on Bukayo Saka's value if he's not on penalties, with me not wanting to go for a Phil Foden just yet because he got taken off early at the weekend, just because I don't want to go with a Salah Haaland draft. So Gyökeres is likely to be in, but part of me likes the fixture for Stack, but Bournemouth have been great. So Gyökeres is in, Stack would be first sub. Fernandes is in, Semenyo, Reinders, and I get to go for Iliman and Dyer. The long-term fixtures look quite good. They aren't in Europe. He is on penalties. He's actually not been too bad for DEFCON, although I don't expect that from him that regularly. And then up front, it is João Pedro, Haaland, and Gyökeres. I like the fixtures long-term. I like some of the rotations that we've got in here. I do appreciate it looks quite template, and I'm sure that'll be the top comment on the video. Harry, the template is templating, or Harry, I've seen this draft before somewhere, and I'm sure it will be. And I do appreciate that. But I think a lot of the picks that we've got in here do look really nice. I like the longevity of it. I look at the defense, and I could downgrade Tarkowski to a 4 million option in the likes of Goodmanson and upgrade the money elsewhere. But I really, really like the idea with some of these long-term DEFCON defenders and not feeling like I need to make a transfer defensively for quite a long time. And I mean a long time. I have 5 defenders here that I massively trust. Good defenses, good for clean sheets, and good for DEFCON, and a little bit of attacking threat. And I like that, which basically means that I hope, now I say this and things will change, but I hope I can use my transfers on moving around my attackers. And that just feels like a much better use of my transfers going forward. And if I don't need to move them around, then I can roll and I can get back to the position where I've got a few transfers in the bank rather than the position I'm in now where I'm using up every single transfer. So that is where the wildcard is at. Of course, Haaland has the Campsy armband. Semenyo actually has the vice captaincy going away to Leeds. In terms of what could change, that 0.6 that I've got in the bank, the reason I went is because there were price changes and I knew that there was a chance I wanted Van Dijk over Tarkowski. And if I'm going to miss one price change, I may as well miss them all. And I didn't miss any over the weekend, I don't think. So as soon as I saw some of the players, I'm like, I've either got to go now or I'm not going to go at all this week. And I decided I'm going to catch them and the value was too important for me. And that's where we're at. So this is how the team is lining up. As I said, things that could change. I feel pretty content with it. Like, this was the wildcard draft I put out in my video on Sunday, and I don't think I'd change it. apart from if I wanted to spend that 0.6 million on a Van Dijk over Tarkowski, if I wanted to change Illiman and Dye, if I wanted to upgrade Stack to Caicedo, that's another possibility. So it's really just about where I spend that money. Outside of that, I'm pretty happy with this team. I've confirmed pretty much everyone in this team in terms of transfers. As I said, the wildcard is not technically active. I haven't clicked the button, but I will. It's just if you don't activate the wildcard, the transfers technically still count towards price changes and making players rise and fall in price. Whereas if you have the wildcard active, wildcard transfers don't impact that. But I will activate it. The transfers have all been made. I'm on about a -28. So unless I decide for some reason to free hit in case someone got injured or something, I'm going to be playing the wildcard. All those transfers confirmed. This is where we are. Enough was enough with some of those players. Let me know what you think. Have I made a mistake in activating it? Or was it the right decision? And would you go with anything different? Would you go with Haaland, Salah? I know the no Liverpool thing might be a slight problem in this, but I have an eye on Van Dijk. And going forward, it feels only like Mo Salah and no one else at the moment. And if I wanted to go to Isak in a couple of weeks, I've got a couple of players that I could downgrade in order to upgrade. Probably Gyökeres is the one that I would look at doing. Anyway, we're going to wrap it up there. There will be videos on Wednesday, transfer targets for you, not on wildcard. Thursday, my team selection, where we'll have an updated draft. We'll talk about if anything's changed. Complete guide on Friday as well. So we'll leave it there. Thank you for watching. 2,000 likes is the aim. Wildcard time. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll be back again very soon.